Hey, I got what you need.
What's up, everybody? It's your man Hambone, and welcome to Hambone's World. So today, I just want to do kind of like a discussion, rant video, quick video, talking about gaming, the gaming industry, and the state of gaming. Sorry guys for the noise. This car is pretty loud. Anyways, I've been gaming since the 80s. Definitely showing my age. And I remember in the 80s and 90s when they released a game on like the NES or the Sega Master System or the Super Nintendo or the Genesis, it was pretty much bug-free. They didn't have the internet. Well, they did have the internet, but it was more like BBS, bulletin boards, things of that nature. It wasn't what we have nowadays. So when they released the game, they made damn sure that it was bug-free. Obviously, yes, games are much more complicated now and much more expensive to produce, for sure. But when you bought the game, it was, you know, like I said, pretty much bug-free and working because they couldn't apply updates to it, you know. And these consoles back then too weren't even, you know, hooked up to the internet. A lot of people weren't back then. And then I remember once it was late in the PS2 cycle when the Ethernet adapter came out for the PS2, and I thought it was cool. But I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, you know, I've also PC gamed back then too, and I was thinking to myself, wow, well, this is cool. It's also going to bring the inconvenience of patch updates and, you know, fixing issues with games, because there was, you know, on the PC side of stuff, it was pretty buggy. But of course, you know, they would bring patches out and it would take care of the issue. But on the console side, it wasn't so much like that. When they released the game on disc, they pretty much had to make sure that it was bug-free and worked right out of the box. And then when the PS3 era and Xbox 360 era came into fruition, I was like, wow, this is definitely cool. You'll be able to download games, you know, and if the game has bugs, you'll be able to patch it. But I would remember booting up my PS3 and my 360, and there was a patch to download or, you know, a system update, and I'm like, god damn, you know, now I have to wait for this versus just being able to turn on my machine and play the game, unlike the PC. So fast forward to today, and games, as we all know, are being released not working, terribly optimized, even on the console end of things. You know, terrible frame times, terrible frame rates, stutter fest, all sorts of stuff. And it's really disappointing because, you know, a lot of these developers keep complaining about how expensive to produce games. Well, yeah, I can understand that, you know, given the state of the economy and everything, prices are just raising, and also the complexity of the games and what it takes to make a game. I mean, it's pretty much, no, it is a Hollywood production, but it's also, I'm kind of baffled because we have all these tools now to make, games easier to produce and cheaper. Like Unreal, it's not the Unreal 5. It's not the greatest engine. Let's just leave it at that. But that's a free tool. You have AI tools, all sorts of different stuff, and games are released, like I said, a hot mess, and then they patch it, and then a year later it's like, okay, now the game's working like it should be. And while that's nice, and it's really sad, because it's like everybody's been conditioned now to like, well, I'll just wait a year and then buy the game, and by then all the bugs will be worked out. And there's really no excuse for that, especially when they're charging $70 a game. And another thing, it's like games from like the PS4 era, they look, some of them look amazing, like Horizon Zero Dawn, Uncharted, The Last of Us, God of War. Some of the best looking games I saw were on console, and they still hold up to this day, even with ray trace reflections and all that stuff. And it's like, now games are just a blurry mess because we have to upscale everything. And these technologies are very useful, I won't say that I don't use them. I use them all the time. It's also really, these upscalers and multi-frame gen are nice if you have older hardware too. It breathes some life into them. But developers just seem to be using it as a crutch. I mean, look at the release of the latest Monster Hunter, and they tell you, right out of the box, they're like, put on frame gen. There's no excuse for that. The RE engine was actually a pretty efficient engine. It was made to run at 60 frames a second. Obviously, it wasn't made to, develop open world games. I think that's where it's showing its flaws and weaknesses. But yeah, and Monster Hunter actually looks like a really good game. I remember playing the old school Monster Hunter. I had it on the PSP, and I love that game. That was when it was just really popular in Japan, and then it just blew up here. And I've actually thought about getting Monster Hunter, but it's just in the state, the release of the game and the state that it's in is just terrible. So yeah, it's a very, very interesting time, and I'm wondering, what we as consumers are going to do about it. Stop purchasing these titles, and so that way developers, get the idea that, hey, we're not going to stand for this shit anymore, because it's getting really out of hand. And now they're talking about raising prices on games even more. It's ridiculous. Eventually, games will cost the price of the console, or it's crazy. So let's talk a little bit about the GPU market and that craziness. We have NVIDIA releasing the 50 series, which was a terrible launch. With the whole thing with Jensen talking about 4090 performance on a 5070 for $549. Like, yeah, right. That's just complete bullshit. And then you can't even get a hold of one. And then you have the price scalping, and it's ridiculous. Like, people are paying $800, $900 for a 5070, which that used to be NVIDIA's bread and butter card. It was like good performance, good price, and now it's like they're charging 5080 prices. It's crazy, and people are paying this, and that's these prices, and that's the problem. Like, I have a 4090. I see no reason right now to upgrade to a 5090, let alone I'm not going to pay over $3,000 for a GPU. And then you had the release of the 9070 and the 9070 XT on AMD side, and that release went actually quite well, at least here in the States, especially if you had access to like a brick and mortar store like Micro Center, you were able to get one. But that also, they started price gouging those, and it's a shame because it's a great GPU, especially for if you pay MSRP. I love mine for $600. It's a hell of a GPU. I mean, like I said in my previous video, it punches above its weight. So it's really interesting. You know, it seems like everybody's getting on this, you know, price war and increasing prices. And it's interesting because, for a second here, let's talk about the economy. Yeah, I get it. The cost of living has gone up. But it's like, you keep raising prices, people aren't going to be able to afford this stuff. And where's that going to leave you? With no business. So it's like you have this balloon, you know, one of those long hot dog balloons, and you squeeze it on one end and it just inflates on the other. Eventually, you know, it's gonna pop. So yeah, it's an interesting time, like I said before, that we're living in. So I'm trying to make this video short, so I'm going to end it here. But on a positive note, guys, I just want to say, you know, at the end of the day, this is a hobby that should be enjoyed. I see a lot of like negativity and people like saying really nasty things to each other in like the YouTube comments and Twitter. You know, like the console and PC war and these fanboys, the Xbox and Sony ponies and PC Master Race. I mean, it's kind of stupid, you know. Like, at the end of the day, people, it's like almost like they associate their identity with this piece of plastic hardware. And, you know, come on, like, we're much more deeper and profound as human beings than a piece of plastic hardware. And at the end of the day, these corporations could, excuse my language, give a fuck about us. They're in the market to make profit, especially for their shareholders. So sorry about kind of going everywhere on this video. Just kind of decided to just film it on my way into work. I was inspired, but I hope you found it of value, and let me know in the comments what you guys think about the gaming industry, and maybe, you know, tell me what you think about what you think what the future is going to look like for gaming. And hope you guys have a good weekend and take care. Peace.